welcome to this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show for November 14th, 2021. We're talking baseball. It's Rich Baxter, and I'm joined today by my great co-host and mainly host of this show, Mr. Gary Mack. How are you, Gary?
I am good, Rich. How the heck are you this fine? Chilly, though, week. Getting a little chill in the air.
A little chill in the air, feeling like Thanksgiving. You know, I can smell the turkey baking right now. It smells so good. The sweet potatoes and the cranberries. One of my favorite times of the year with fall, the leaves falling, and hot stove cooking there in baseball's free agent market.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the cold, so I'll say it's not one of my favorite times of the year, but give me the hot stove. I'll be sitting around it, rubbing my hands and seeing what's going on, Rich. And we just had a general managers meetings in California. Funny how they pick nice warm weather spots, isn't it? And not much.
Not much to talk about. I think I read somewhere where they were talking about the pitchers coming off the mound and getting checked in every game now. And it's kind of getting old hat with some teams. It does seem to be an intrusion, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it's silly too. I mean, look, there's a couple of spots that they check. So if after a while, if you're cheating, you're gonna just put it somewhere else. You know, you just find another spot to put it in. They check the waist, the belt, the I don't know if they go into the waistband, but they check there. They check the brim of the hat. They check the hair. Why not put it in your shirt or something? You know, you know what I mean? It just seems like a silly thing, and I guess they want to show that they're doing something to prevent the cheating, but you know what? It went on for 100 and some odd years, and I get it. You don't want cheating in your sport, but you know, guys are gonna find a way to do something. They always do.
Yeah, and it's sort of an intrusion on certain pitchers coming off the mound, even though they're, you know, good spirited and good natured about it because they have to be. You wonder how much more of this we can take from, you know, a fan standpoint. Anyway, you have people that could cork the bats. You could have other things going on in a game, but yet, I guess with the brouhaha about movement of the ball and things like that last year at the beginning of the season, they wanted to make sure that, you know, it isn't a widespread problem, but I think it's something they could probably back away from a little bit.
Yeah, and they might in the future. You know, I mean, they kind of know who are the guys that are probably doing something, and you know, but you can't just signal out anybody. But it's got to go back to where if you think something is happening, then you can check them. Um, this constant thing, everybody, you know, it's like everybody gets a trophy. You know, everybody gets a participation trophy, so they have to do it to everybody, so they don't look they're singling somebody out. And but it's kind of silly unless you have the guy, you know, what if the guy scratches his neck? Are you gonna think that he does that? You know, he's got something there. I mean, come on, it's a little crazy now, and just play the game. Play it the way it's always been played. I mean, you can even go back to the Astros cheating. Did they cheat? Yes. Has it always been cheating? It has been in some. And where do you draw the line on cheating? And we've had this discussion. If somebody in a dugout steals the signs, is that cheating? I mean, if you got a coach that goes down in between innings and is looking at video and sees something, is that cheating? I mean, who knows? I don't know anymore. And as long as it's not real blatant, I think it's just gamesmanship. But it's the political correct mob, I think, again, taking over.
Yep. So the GM meetings wrapped up in the past week since we did our last podcast, and the players that have a choice to accept the qualifying offers have until November 17th to make their decision. So just a couple of days away from today as we do the podcast. So not many expected to take that qualifying offer, and it's a pretty good one at $18.4 million for anybody that got that qualifying offer from their team. But
Yeah.
usually those guys are the top free agents that get those qualifying offers, and they're sometimes not so quick to jump at them. So not too many have accepted it already. I think I read somewhere where a couple did, but none of the big superstars.
Yeah, a couple are rejected already. I think Nick Castellano, I think he rejected. Michael Conforto of the Mets, he rejected his. That's all I've heard so far. They have until Wednesday, I think, to accept or reject it. So we'll see. There's a couple of guys on there. Noah Syndergaard of the Mets probably should take it. He hasn't pitched in 2 years, coming off of Tommy John surgery. He pitched a little bit at the end of this past season, but probably we would be best to take it. But these guys are willing to take a chance now on free agency, and apparently there's teams that are willing to gamble. Again, I'll bring up the Mets because I do a show on them, and I'm familiar with it. But Michael Conforto had a terrible season, and I thought for sure it might be in his best interest to take it, but no, and apparently he's got multiple year offers out there. There's some teams that are interested, so um, you just never know. There's a couple of guys I thought last couple of years should have taken it and did not. So it's I guess a hit and miss thing, and you hope that it pans out.
That's for sure. So this week as well, the 18th, I believe, the NL MVP is being announced. So that'll be interesting to see who wins that. And oddly enough, Bryce Harper from the Phillies, one of the favorites to win this year. And he's won a Silver Slugger and another award this year. So interesting that we really haven't heard Bryce Harper mentioned as an MVP like during the season, but here during the off season, all of a sudden he's one of the top candidates.
Yeah, and I have to confess that I've been a little confused with all of these. They come out with these top 3 finalists things, and after a while, I got to tell you, I get, okay, is it is this the drawing, or is this just you're telling me who the finalists are? Or so I turned my notifications off because I was getting these things with Gold Glove. I don't know who won or what. It was too confusing. Maybe it's just me. But yeah, Bryce Harper had a big year, and there's still a lot of thought about that some people believe the MVP should come from a winning team, at least a playoff team. Others feel it's the best player. They might have to have a most valuable player award and have the best player of the year award. And because it's very difficult. Like if Harper wins, you could say, well, how could he be that valuable if he didn't even lead his team to a division or to a wild card? Um, and you could get other guys like Austin. I don't know who else is in the final three, but if I get one of them right by chance, you got an Austin Riley or something like that that led the Braves all year, or Freddie Freeman. You could say, well, they deserve it because they got the guys. They won the World Championship. It's a very tough thing. That's why even some of the years Mike Trout won, people said, was he the most valuable or was he the best player that year? And it's an argument could be made that he wasn't as valuable, but he was the best player. So I don't know. It's just a thing, and I'm going on and on again. Here I go.
That's all right. That's what we do here on the Baseball Talk Radio Show. The three finalists, and as you said, that's an interesting aspect of the award season as well. Who picks the three finalists, and how do they do that? For NL MVP, it's Fernando Tatis Jr., Harper, and Juan Soto from, I believe, the Nationals.
Yeah.
So those were the top three that were put in as a choice. One of those three is going to win it. And you could make a good case for any one of them to win this as well. It's a tough thing to say, all right, well, this guy was the best. And then you could go back to the stats and say, well, one or the other had a higher batting average, scored more homers, RBIs, that sort of thing. So we'll see. It'll be an interesting pick for us, being National League fans. And of course, the American League pick as well will be interesting as well. But always a fun time for awards season on baseball. And we're in the middle of it right now. They announce it generally on MLB Network at around 6 p.m. in the evening. So if you have that channel, check it out around 6 p.m. this week. You'll have a lot to look at. And the next thing we're going to talk about on the show is the top 10 free agents in baseball and who we think is going to be going where, and some comments on them as well. So I found a nice website that lists the top 10 free agents, and they're not listed in a manner that is shared on other social media, like just a regular list. I'm going to bring up a schematic here on it, if I can find it. And that's the part
that was pretty neat what you just had.
Yeah. Part of the fun of doing a live show and trying to have everything appear on the show is finding things when you're looking for it. But it's from Fangraphs. I think I finally found it here and uncovered it. And let's take a look at this real quick. If you're watching us on the YouTube channel, which we appreciate if you hit like and subscribe on all our shows, you can listen to them. We're going to try to go live a couple times here in the off season, give you guys a chance to participate and join in on our show. And if you could see the screen there, the top free agents are listed by WAR, WAR, wins above replacement player. So there was some news in this past week about the owners wanting to tie some pay schedules to this WAR product. And, if you disputed your salary, you would go to the WAR. Did you deserve to get a raise or not? But it has Marcus Semien as the top free agent, 31 years old, plays second base and shortstop. Don't know too much about him. He was with Toronto.
And Oakland before that. Good shortstop. It's odd though. See, now you would say that. Look at that, and as you said, using that scoring system of WAR, that Semien would be the top free agent. But yet most people consider Correa to be the top free agent, and on this particular list, he's the second best free agent. But it is interesting, and that could be where the union has an argument as far as using war to do the arbitration. But we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later or another show. But very interesting looking at the list here, and it's pretty close. I think what's missing here, and this is just my opinion, is that it's need. It's what a team needs. And right now there are a lot of shortstops, and people need shortstops apparently, because it seems like the shortstops, which Simeon is one of them.
Yeah.
Correa, Marte is high. A lot of people have Seager and Baez up higher and Story, but Story I don't think is going to go anywhere. Well, it could. I think they have them higher because of the need for free agents, but it's a tough thing to do, and I guess they're making an attempt here to rank them, as you say, by WAR, and it's a very interesting lineup there.
Yeah, you got Max Scherzer in the mix there, 37 years old.
Yeah.
Freddie Freeman, 32, has 11 years service into the MLB. And nice names up there. I wonder if either of our favorite teams will be able to pick anybody up.
Well, I'm sure they're looking. I don't think it. Well, you guys have said it shortstop, and we're said it shortstop. The Phillies.
Segura.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be looking for a shortstop, so they're not going to be topped. The pitching is the thing that's interesting, and whether or not they go, we go after either one of our teams. The Mets may be looking for an outfielder with a Michael Conforto. He's not even on the top. That's how many we got there? 25 or something?
A good
the
25,
first
yeah.
grouping. He's not even in that, and that's coming off a bad year. Wow, he's way down. Where is he? I don't even see him.
Yeah. As far as wins above replacement player, he doesn't rank very high.
Yeah.
So, but we have some interesting names. Chris
Yeah,
Bryant.
Yeah.
Kyle Schwarber, probably one of the most durable guys that can play different positions.
Yeah. Well, of course, the big thing is Correa. A lot of people are talking about the possibility of him going to the Yankees or the Tigers. The Tigers are very interested in Correa and hot and heavy. They want to get a big name free agent, so that'll be interesting to watch. AJ Hinch, his former manager in Houston, is the manager of Detroit, so that could be a in with Detroit with Carlos Correa. The Yankees are searching for a shortstop and said to be interested in Correa and Seager. So Seager got a little miffed. He didn't feel as if the Yankees were pursuing him as highly as they were pursuing Correa. So don't know how's that going to work out. The Mets and numerous other teams, of course, are looking at Starling Marte. I didn't read too much this week about pitching. People, even though we need pitching, every team needs pitching. You don't hear too much about people clamoring for this free agent class of pitching so far. That's an interesting thing. I think Kershaw will probably end up in the Dodgers. He'll stay, I think, coming off a bad year as well and injuries. I don't know, Rich. It doesn't look like the Phillies have a lot of free agents up there.
No, not highly.
So they're pretty.
Saw they
Are
have to
they
anyway.
intact? Are they going to lose anybody?
Yeah, McCutcheon probably won't be back for this
Okay.
year.
Well,
A couple of others, so they'll need a fielder. And you had a guy like Chris Bryant play left field and uh, third base. I think they're pretty well set at pitching. Of course, they could always use like see Eduardo Rodriguez available there from Boston, and
mhm.
of course the Phillies general manager used to be in Boston, so he probably has some contacts there. If Phillies wanted to add a nice lefty to the rotation, that would be nice. And of course, as you said, not too much being talked about pitching wise this year.
Yeah, haven't heard much so far. So, we can our teams can look at that down the road perhaps, but yeah, the Phillies are pretty well set other than I mean, McCutcheon was a nice player for the Phillies, gave him some nice veteran leadership, but I think can be replaced easy enough and probably upgraded with a Marte. I'm sure the Phillies are looking at Marte or Castellanos or any of those guys. Bryant, as you say, I know the Mets are looking at Bryant. Um, they talked to Baez already to keep him. Though their thoughts are now that there is a possibility they're not going to keep him, which is okay with me. I think they set it second with Cano coming back and McNeil coming off a bad year, but could be good there. Schwarber's an interesting piece. I heard or read, I should say, that the St. Louis may be interested in him. So um, these guys are going to go and get their money. I think one of the guys that interests me is that on there is Steven Matz, the former Met, had a good year in Toronto with the Phillies. With the Blue Jays, and he is now a free agent. And apparently, the Phillies are talking to or have talked to Steven Matz, and he would be a nice addition there with Zach Wheeler. But what are you guys going to do? Get all of the Mets' old pitching staff? I mean, maybe you'll
Listen,
sign Syndergaard then too.
never know. But
That
yeah,
would be
Schwarber has a
crazy.
relationship with the Phillies' new batting coach as well. Kevin Long is his name, and he worked with him in Boston. And he was mentioned as somebody that really helped him turn things around. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But he was with the Nationals for 4 years as Kevin Long as a batting coach, and
Yeah, he was.
also Coach Schwarber.
Yeah, I don't know why he let. He was with the Mets as well, and they let him go. I don't know why. They should have hung on to him. He's a good batting coach.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Kyle Schwarber and the rest of the free agents. And I don't know, it might be good to add somebody like him. Probably not commanding too much money like some of these guys would.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's very versatile, just a hard nosed ball player.
And of course, some of these guys, there was a rumor that some of them may try to sign early or would want to sign early to, because of the. We're all kind of looking at December 1st as a deadline, because of the CBA, uh, expiring, and we could go into a lockdown or a strike. So I think a lot of these guys want to get signed and get settled because who knows how long a lockout would last, and then it's a rush. Do you want to, if they settle it in February and 2 weeks away from spring training, and do you want to then have to decide where you're going to sign and do all the logistics involved there? So might as well get signed now. And at least if they lock you out, I don't know if you would get paid if they cancel the season, but um, at least you'd have somewhere to go, you know? So that's don't know all the logistics behind that, but they say some of them may want to rush into signing. So we will have to see if that's the case. But it's
That's
been
for
a slow
sure.
market so far, Rich. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it's very slow. And usually right after the World Series, it's kind of slow and then it heats up and then it starts to bubble over to a certain extent. Teams will start getting their players ready. But like you said, the wild card this year is the CBA, December 1st. Is that going to hinder some teams from making a decision early? That could be.
Yeah, we'll have to see. And CBA is looming large, and we'll just who knows how that's going to go. But the players did make an offer already, and uh, you know, and as you said, the owners had made an offer on arbitration, and it's kind of, I don't know. It's always been a very confusing issue, arbitration. And how do you decide and all of that? And the union made an offer. They want to move the first year arbitration to 2 years. It's currently at 3 years. And the owners have offered to eliminate it entirely, instead using the war, as you said. They also offered creating a pool from the game's revenues that would be allocated among players not yet eligible for free agency. So I don't know how maybe they'd split it evenly. If you I don't know how that would work. But it because it's crazy that you never lose an arbitration. Even when you lose, you don't lose. I mean, if a team offers, if a guy asks for 7 million, the team offers 6.5, and he's been making 3 and has a big year, he's either going to get 6.5 or 7. So he's going to get a double his raise anyway. So I don't know. And we'll have to see. And free agency is going to be another sticking point. The owners put up a point. They want to make it at an age. So it begins at 29 and a half years of age, as opposed to having free agency begin at the service time. Um, the players, the union doesn't like that. They want to keep it at 6 years of service, because if you get a guy comes up at 20 years or 19 years of age, he'll be with a club for 10 years instead of, where he could get it at 26 or 27. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just a couple of the issues. And they make the point in an article here that I'm looking at, that Carlos Correa wouldn't have been up this year because he'd still be stuck to the team till he was 29 and a half. I think the age is almost a good thing in a way. I think it's a good idea, and I think the owners are showing some good ideas here. Maybe it's just, I don't know how you would figure it though, because if a guy comes up at 26, you get him for 3.5 years. But again, if a guy comes up at 19, he's there for 10 years. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't think it's fair.
Yeah. So I don't know unless they can reach some kind of conclusion, if you, I don't know. I don't,
Yeah. And I guess
I don't,
they're thinking that the free agent market is not out of control, but the money that's handed out is quite a lot to certain players. So
Mhm.
there's good arguments on both sides.
There is, and there always has been, but you know, um, who was right and who was wrong, and they're very confused about tanking too. They're very concerned about that. That some teams, I don't think I ever really know. I didn't notice it in baseball as much, where teams are tanking to get higher draft picks and keep themselves in like a lower status. Um, I don't know. Do you notice that much?
I don't think they set out to do that on purpose, especially now with the gambling across the country. You have a reason for a team not to lay down and lose, quote unquote. I mean, is that fixing a game? We could go into that at a later date, but if a team's going to do that, then I don't know. It's interesting. NFL had a weird week last week with 3 or 4 big upsets on teams that you wouldn't think would have lost, and that was the immediate trigger in my mind to go off and say, are these teams like laying back certain weeks? Are they just not interested in winning? Because you had big name teams that were super favorites going down against teams that you would think would have lost by a big margin. So
Yeah.
That does raise an ugly head in sports now. The advent of all this gambling, and we talked about it quite a lot on this show. And is it good for the game? Is it bad for the game? That's all you hear during some games is, make a bet, make $1,000 bet. We're going to refund your money if you lose. And then, miraculously somewhere down the road, you don't get it refunded.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're in bed with these guys big time now, all the major sports. And, I, it boggles the mind that they could be so against betting, the players betting, and yet they're in bed with these betting groups, or they call them, what do they call them, fantasy groups or what now?
Sports books.
But they practically, they come out and say bet on the game. So I don't know how Manfred is defending this. I guess it got to the point now nobody really cares anymore.
Yeah, it seems to be a 360 from where they were just a year ago or two on the subject. But that's how fast things can change sometimes.
And Mitch, speaking of Manfred, he did all of these things to pick up the pace of the game, and the game has not gotten any quicker. It's set a record for the longest length. The average was 3 hours and 10 minutes and 7 seconds for the 2021 regular season. The games were even longer for the playoffs, and it was up 3 minutes from the pandemic shortened 2020 season, and up about 5 minutes from 2019. And that's with the 3 batter minimum to keep relief pitchers in there. But and so it doesn't seem like anything is really working. Interesting. I was reading an article, if I may, where a guy, I don't know who it was, some statistician or something, went back and watched 2 games. He watched the game from 1984 and a game from 2014, and he picked 2 games, and they both had the same amount of pitches, the same amount of hitters, the same amount of runs scored. Everything was equal, and he wanted to see what the differences, in the times was. And I think my math is not going to be correct, but I think it was 35 instances or differences in the time between what caused the time from one game to the other 25 or so was in, time between pitches. It took much longer between pitches now in 2014 game that he watched than the 1984 game. And then the other was the replay and just time between innings with commercials and such like that. So there's an example there of and I think the difference in time was something like 21 minutes. So I don't know what it proves, but I think it shows that these pitchers take too much time now. There's too much time between innings, and that's the only way they're going to do it.
Yeah, and I've heard about pitchers' time clocks coming into play, giving them a certain amount of time to get that pitch out. And sometimes it's not the pitchers, sometimes it's the batters,
It's the
like,
bat, yeah.
So
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
baseball, we've said this too on many a shows of this podcast here. Who's in a rush at a baseball game to go home? You just paid more than $100 for a seat sometimes, parking. Who wants to rush home in 2 hours? I don't want to see a 2-hour special if I'm shelling out big money to go to a game. I want to relax. I want to sit back, enjoy the aspect of an afternoon baseball game or an evening at the park. I don't want to just run right out like half of a movie.
The only thing is, if you think back years ago when the games were 2.5 hours, did you feel like you were getting gypped then? I don't think I was getting gypped then either, but I understand what you're saying, and I agree. I don't want to be rushed either, but some of the games can get dragged out, and it's like we've said, if you ask people to go to a lot of games, they don't think the games are too long, and yet if you're watching at home, people think they're too long. So it's kind of a mishmash in a way. And the main thing is the kids, but to start the games earlier. What can I tell you?
Yet another aspect is that all the other major sports are controlled by time. You got hockey. It's just fixed time. At certain time, it's going to be second period over. It's going to be game over, except if it's overtime. Basketball, football, it's the same thing. You generally know about what time these games are going to wind up. They have them timed to perfection. And baseball is that wild card. It always has been.
Right. Exactly. There's no clock. And I would like to see them try to cut it down a little bit. But how, I don't know. I don't want to see a time clock for pitchers. I think this kind of stuff has got to start in the minor leagues or even lower. Where that you can't teach them to, but kids watch the pros and then they emulate them. You got to teach them to just be ready to pitch. Don't walk around the mound. What are you walking around for? Don't do that. I don't know what level you would start it. Maybe the collegiate, maybe the high school level will be better. But they shouldn't learn that stuff early on. It should be, taken away from them. Or they tried the whatchamacallit clocks in a low A league and it seemed to work. So but I don't like the idea of a clock. I just don't. And what do they do? I mean, what is it? It's a ball if you violate the clock. I don't know. It's not baseball.
Interesting. Well, Aaron Judge hopes to remain with the Yankees for a long time. In the next 10 years, he'd like to stay with the Yankees. He made a comment this past week on a program talking to some folks. And why not? Why not be a Yankee for the next 10 years? He was on a podcast here. And of course, he's 29 years old. That would put him as 39 with the Yankees. And he's got 1 year of left before he becomes an unrestricted free agent. So the Yankees have to be thinking what's going to happen with Judge. And of course, he's one of the best Yankees out there. So we'll see next year, probably, barring any strikes or lockouts this coming season, of course.
Well, look, there's one surefire way he could stay a Yankee. Don't ask for an outrageous contract.
Yeah. And, probably will. But
Ask
we'll
for 10 million a year. I'm sure they'd be glad to give it to him for the next 10 years.
yeah. And I think he could get by on that, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Even in New York.
I know we can.
You know what? Ask for 10 million and a 30-year contract.
Yeah, why not?
And then that way you go right into retirement.
Pay it off over time.
Yeah, let them pay you over time. I'm sure they might even do that. A lot of these, remember years ago, I mean, Bobby Bonilla is still getting $1 million a year from the Mets for something. And people criticize that. They have a day they call it Bobby Bonilla Day because I forget the date, but every year at that date he gets his check. And I just say, you know what? When they gave him that offer of a contract, that they were in contention. They wanted to get some other players, and they offered him that contract. He took it wisely, and it worked for them then. And it may not, people look at it now and say it's not working for the team, but you had to remember at the time it helped them get, other players that they needed to make a run. And I think they made the playoffs that year. I forget what year it was, but that's the way you have to look at it. You can't look at it that, the bum gets $1 million a year from the Mets for no reason at all. That was the contract deal. He was smart enough to take it. And now he's maybe 50 or something, and he's still getting $1 million a year for another few years. Brilliant move. I mean, the guy can never go bankrupt because he's always got $1 million coming to him until a certain year. I think it was a brilliant move, really, on his part. Now people would scoff, $1 million, that's nothing. But wouldn't you like to get a paycheck every year for $1 million? I certainly would.
Yeah, being retired, that would be great.
Yeah. You bought your houses, you have all of that nonsense, and because he made some nice money when he was playing, not as much as these guys, but he made, probably 4 or 5 million, up to 10 million maybe a year. And he renegotiated this contract so they would pay him for $1 million for 30 years or something. And that's smart, I think, because now he goes into retirement and right into Social Security, I think.
Not a bad deal at all. No, I agree with you. It's great.
Good agent, that's a good thing. Sometimes these guys should look at that. Keith Hernandez used to do that as well. Not that he got paid, but he was making, I think, I don't know, we'll say $3 million a year or something. And what I remember him saying is that he would try to live on he had a lot of alimony too. So he had like 3 wives, ex-wives he had to pay off, but he would live on X amount of dollars, like 500,000 or something, and put the rest away, that whatever it was a year, so he'd have it for retirement. not foreseeing that he was going to become an announcer and all of that stuff, I guess. But now the guy's got a good lifestyle, you know. Okay, he's still working, but he had a good lifestyle. He had, you know, he's got a house in Florida, a house in New York, an apartment in New York. You know, who's got it better? He's got a house out in the Hamptons, drives a Mercedes Benz. You know, I mean, who's got it better than him?
Yeah, that's true. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show podcast. Check us out over at the baseballtalkradio.com. That's baseballtalkradio.com. You'll find more and more podcasts there added, trying to add them more and more in the off season here. And we're there, of course, with Gary's show, Mets Musings. You're watching our YouTube page, it's right here. You just click on it. You can listen to it right there. Our show, the Baseball Talk Radio show's there. My show's there, Phillies Talk podcast, and a host of others. So check us out over there at baseballtalkradio.com. Subscribe, hit the like button on YouTube. And Gary, next week we'll know more about who's the MVPs.
Yes, we will. And Rich, we may even have some signings. Who knows?
Very cool. So can't wait for next week's show already, Gary. You get me all pumped up for it. So folks, hope you have a great week out there.
We'll see you the next time.